Good morning, Dan and Amy. As part of President Trump's presentation of the expansion of Operation Legend, named after a 4-year-old boy who was murdered in Kansas City, President Trump talked yesterday about introducing federal law enforcement agents into cities that are having problems with violent crime and are seemingly not very effective in addressing them, if they're even trying to be. And the president singled out Chicago for obvious reasons, as the Wall Street Journal termed Chicago. It's Murder City, USA.
For this reason, today I am announcing that the Department of Justice will immediately surge federal law enforcement to the city of Chicago. The FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshal Service, and Homeland Security will together be sending hundreds of skilled law enforcement officers to Chicago to help drive down violent crime. And murderers and violent criminals are breaking a wide range of federal laws. We have that. It's as wide as it can be. We will find them, arrest them, and prosecute them. They will be in jail for many years to come. And we will work with local police to identify violations of state and local laws to help ensure that offenders are caught and jailed for their crimes. But we must remember that the job of policing a neighborhood falls on the shoulders of local elected leadership. Never forget that. When they abdicate their duty, the results are catastrophic. Americans must hold their city leaders accountable. They must insist that community officials fully support, fully back, and fully fund their local police departments. There is simply no substitute for a police department that has the strong backing of city leaders.
And then we heard from legend Teleferro's mom, who was present at this announcement. Her name is Sharon Powell. Legend's father was also there, as were his grandparents. And, Chicago is getting a lot of the headlines, Portland and Seattle, because of the images coming out of those cities, the autonomous zones, and the other silliness. But Kansas City, where Miss Powell and her family hail, from where they hail, 106 murders so far this year, 150 all of last year. So they're saying the spike in violent crime is happening in mid-sized urban centers, too, like Kansas City, and it can't be forgotten. And Miss Powell certainly wants to make sure that Legend's death isn't.
Good afternoon. I am Sharon Powell. I am Legend Talaferro's mother. I want to thank God for giving me the strength to withstand today. Operation Legend is not to harass, it's not to harm or to hurt. It is to help investigate unsolved murders, and which one of those happened to be our innocent 4-year-old son. This operation is personal to us. We want justice for our son and others. We have to take a stand in our communities and speak up to help this operation be successful. My one and only child, who fought through open heart surgery at 4 months, is gone due to senseless gun violence. Children are supposed to be our future, and our 4-year-old son didn't make it to kindergarten. I stand here today as a mother fighting against violence for my son, Legend Talaferro. My family and I support Operation Legend, and we strongly want our community and everyone else behind us. Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate all the efforts.
And in Chicago, what is Mayor Triple Threat's response? To provide the encouraging news that more resources, law enforcement resources, are on the way to protect families, particularly on the south and west sides of Chicago, where the majority of the violent crime is occurring. To announce, as Trump did yesterday, there's $61 million in grants that the federal government is providing for us to hire more police officers, and we're going to try and take advantage of those resources to hire more police officers, to protect those who need more protection, to protect those families, frankly, who we are failing at present, failing in our fundamental responsibility to provide for their physical protection. We're failing them. Federal government's providing resources so we can stop failing them as a city. That's good news. Is that what Lori Lightfoot said? No. This is her main concern,
He will be at the helm supervising these new resources that will be coming in to our city. So they're not federal troops. They're FBI, DEA, ATF.
U.S. Attorney John Lausch will be supervising the federal agents, law enforcement agents coming in. So you don't have to worry about federal troops. You don't have to worry about the dictatorship that she said was imposed on Portland from D.C. The tyranny she warned about. Federal law enforcement coming in to enforce federal law. That's what Lori Lightfoot calls the auspices of tyranny. That's her response. Make sure you're not worried about federal law enforcement rather than focus on how we shouldn't be worried about violent criminals and their predatory behavior in Chicago's neighborhoods against innocent victims, like the almost 24 kids under the age of 18 who've been murdered in the last 5 weekends. It's just remarkable. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Deontay Johnson. He is the president of Black Conservative Foundation. He's also a Chicago native. And as he tweeted out earlier in the week on the occasion of that shootout at the funeral in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood on the south side where 15 people were shot, that shooting occurred down the street from his grandfather's house. Deontay Johnson, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. How are you?
Good. You're a Black Conservative Federation, so that means you're a Black conservative. See how I figured that out. Black Voices for Trump Advisory Board member, and as I said, a Chicago native. So how do you receive what President Trump had to say, the rollout of Operation Legend so far, and then the reaction he's getting from mayors from Lightfoot in Chicago to Wheeler in Portland?
You know, this is great news. This is really good news. This shows what our president is. Our president is a solutionist. And, you know, he made a commitment to America on putting America first. He also made the commitment of making sure that America will be safe again. And that is exactly what we're seeing, a safer America. And so, you know, Chicago's a part of America, whether Lori Lightfoot likes it or not. And our president is making sure that Chicago is safe, that the black community is safe, that people can go outside and be able to go to the grocery store in peace, to be able to just have a walk in the park in peace and not have to worry about gun violence in the neighborhood, you know. And so he's providing us peace of mind, and that's why we love our president, because he is definitely putting America first.
Now, I know you went to U of I. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to high school. So actually, I moved out of Chicago.
Oh, you did before.
For high school, into Danville, Illinois, and so Danville, Illinois, and that's how I ended up at University of Illinois near Champaign.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, tell us about growing up in Chicago, the friends that you still have there, family potentially. You mentioned your grandfather's house was just down the road from where the shooting occurred. Yeah,
that area, and then my grandmother lived in the Roseland community, and so you know, I remember being a kid in Chicago and actually being able to play outside, actually being able to walk up and down the block that we lived in, ride the bike up and feel safe. But we knew that, you know, that was when there was still violence happening, but the violence was happening in I don't want to say a secured area, but, you know, those happened in the alleys and behind closed doors, and a lot of times late at night. Nowadays, it's just happening in the plain daylight in front of them, out in the open, and as we've seen in the funeral, and that's where the problem is. And so
that's interesting, because you're a young man. You're still in your 20s, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're talking about being a kid, that's not that long ago, and you're describing an environment that's very different than the environment we're seeing in Chicago right now. And so, what do you think the difference is?
I think the difference, like I said, there's a differencing of parenting. You know, growing up, and I guess I saw the making of what we're seeing today, because the people who are doing these shootings, a lot of them aren't even over 30. But what I saw was, is I remember, my mom's an educator, and I come from a family of educators. My grandmother's an educator. What I saw was, in school, I saw a lot of parents taking up for their children, where if there was a problem, the parent will go and they will have at it with the teacher. And what that did was that caused students and their children not to be able to have any sense of accountability. And that's what we saw, is that people were not accountable. And what happened is that they said, well, I can do whatever I want to do because my parents are going to take up for me. And that went from the school age to high school to now the real world, to where they think that mom and dad is still going to be there to take up for them and they can do whatever they want. And there is no sense of accountability. There's no sense of ownership. There's no one taking ownership for their actions. And so that's a big problem that we're having right now with our gun violence and our violence in general, that there's no one who's taking ownership. There's no accountability. No one is holding these people accountable. And to be honest, those who are doing these shootings, a lot of them are still living in their parents' basement or their grandparents' basement.
Mm-hmm. And then the officials, both locally, at the state level, at the federal level, at least those who represent, for example, the city of Chicago, represent Portland, represent Seattle, other major cities, New York City. It seems to me they're mostly interested in pandering to Black Lives Matter for votes than they are in addressing any of the problems you're describing.
Yeah, and Gianno Caldwell, Fox News analyst, I heard him say multiple times, is Black lives don't matter to Democrats. Black votes do. And that's all. That's all that they're worried about now, because it's amazing how, if you notice, Black Lives Matter was pretty quiet between when President Trump first got elected and now. There was some movement here and there, but there hasn't been much movement. There hasn't been much happening, and now that we're close to election, it's time to start ramping up fear again. It's time to start causing ruckus again.
So as somebody involved with Black Voices for Trump, I mean, do you see we see this even there was a piece in CNN about Trump doing incrementally better with the Black vote than he did 4 years ago at this time against Hillary Clinton, and I've seen polling that suggests he may do substantially better, and substantially isn't a big move. It could be go from 6% to 11%. And that could be a real difference maker. And how ironic would that be if the Black vote puts President Trump over the top in November? But do you see that happening as you travel around, as you talk in your cohort of young Black men and women? Do you see more movement or more open-mindedness to Trump, particularly against the backdrop of this violence?
Absolutely, and I'm one of the youngest. I'm one of the youngest on the advisory board. But I will tell you this, is that the Black vote is up for grabs, and we are coming after it. We're coming after it, and we're going to get it. And we're going to get it. And President Trump has made it so easy with the policies. We talk about opportunity zones. We talk about what he's done for HBCUs. We talk about the lowest unemployment rate amongst African Americans and women prior to coronavirus. We talk about criminal justice reform, which was a big one that really resonated with Americans all over. I believe, when we talk about the Chicago area, criminal justice reform and opportunity zones was something that was important, because it's taking communities like the Roseland community, like the Inglewood community, and giving opportunities for growth for those communities, giving opportunities for those communities to now have access to whole foods and have access to healthy eating and having access to revamped housing. That is one thing that I love about President Trump, because in 2016, he said, "What the heck do you have to lose?" And 2017, once he got elected, he immediately went to work on making sure that he repaired all those areas, schools, neighborhoods, and communities.
Do you think, regardless of what happens in November, that there's going to be a paradigm shift in big cities like Chicago with respect to the allegiance of, really, I mean, the overwhelming majority of voters, but I'll just speak specifically to Black voters, to politicians like a Lori Lightfoot or like a Bill de Blasio in New York or like a Mayor Bottoms in Atlanta, that the same old way of thinking, the same old policies producing the same old results, whether it's a white guy in charge or a black woman in charge. The white guy and the black woman with the same mentality, they all got to go, and we got to rethink how we govern big cities like Chicago.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, you're focused on what President Trump is doing. You're focused on what's happening nationally. When we talk about you're so upset with the police departments. Lori Lightfoot she oversees the police department. Lori Lightfoot appoints the police chief. Keisha Bottoms appoints the police chiefs. Bill de Blasio, he appoints the police chief. This is in the hands of the mayors. President Trump does not appoint a single police chief in this country. This happens at the municipal level, and so people have to make sure they're focusing their focus on what's happening at the level, and they have to know basic civics, which body of government does what. And that's where it becomes the problem, because we seeing this in Illinois is voter turnout when you start getting to municipal races are extremely low. No one's voting.
Yeah, right. No, so there's opportunity, exactly. Now of course that demands some competition for these individuals too, which hasn't been offered in Chicago in some time. But your point is well taken. Deontay Johnson, president of the Black Conservative Federation, Black Voices for Trump Advisory Board member, and Chicago native. Deontay, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is Jerry Boyer of Town Hall Finance for townhall.com. I like to use Google Trends to see what people are looking up on the internet as a way of getting a sense of what average people are thinking about. I found that searches for the phrase economic depression peaked in late March. Then, in the ensuing weeks, we saw peaks in better than expected in the category of business and industry. Then we saw in early May a strong uptick in searches for economic recovery.